Welcome back to Withdraw Consent. I'm Jack. Today I want to tackle a thing that I've been thinking about for so many months. And basically, let me just give you an example. So I saw on the Young Turks, Ana Kasparian was saying that she got a bunch of death threats. And basically what had happened is that she had said that the slaughter in Gaza of civilians is wrong. Okay, so I would say that that's objectively true. I'm not saying if you attack a Hamas member and there's a civilian casualty, but if they have a bomb and it kills, like the one I give you an example is a 2,000-pound bomb, 15 men, like 85 women, women and children. I don't know if the men were even Hamas, but if you say your numbers are 15 to 85, I don't think there's much justification there. There is an objective reality that things are wrong, right? And so she says this. Then there's this group called the Canary Mission, and it's a group of unknown people, dark money, unknown where the money comes from. They put these profiles on there of you if you tweet against Israel. They then say anti-Israel equals anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism equals anti-USA. It literally says USA on their website, which I'll link to below under references. And then basically they're just trying to, I don't know, get you fired or get the government to look at you for some future anti-Semite law, anti-Semitic rhetoric law or whatever. And then basically, so all these people start threatening her because of the Canary Mission article that they make about her. But the threats are astonishing. There are so many of them that say, they got Israeli flags, and they say, we wish you were in Gaza so we could slaughter you. Okay, let's think about this, right? She says, it's wrong to slaughter women and children in Gaza. They then say, ooh, you're evil. I wish you as a civilian woman were in Gaza so we could slaughter you like we're slaughtering the other women and children who are there. To them, there's no moral problem with what they're saying. But if you look at this objectively, and it's kind of like the Charlie Kirk stuff I was talking about in Monday's episode. If you look at it objectively, what's good for the goose has to be good for the gander. I'm sorry about the phrase, but I'm just saying, if it's wrong in one place and the circumstances are no different, like literally just transporting Ana Kasparian to Gaza, it has to be wrong in another place. You know what I mean? And so that they don't see this. But the problem is that we're pretending that they look at reality the way we look at it, okay? So from a European perspective, which the entire rest of the world has just kind of taken this, right? Which is fine. It's called dualism, right? So I'm a dualist. I believe that there's a subjective reality that I perceive, right? But objectively, there's a reality around me. It's not just my perception as reality. There's more beyond what my perception is. I alone exist and I just perceive things and that's reality. No, I think there's an objective reality outside of me. I live in it. Inside that objective reality, there are other people subjectively experiencing the same objective reality, and that there are objectively true moral things. There's also gray and hazy things that are difficult to determine, and you have to kind of make your own decision and live with the consequences. But there are things that are clearly black and white. So if you see a kid walking down the road, just a kid minding his own business, he's 2, okay, and he's toddling down the road, no matter, regardless of the color of that kid, what that kid's wearing or something, if you go up and drop kick him, you're a terrible human being. Like this, there's no gray there. It's pretty easy. Problem is we're dealing with people who are relativists, and by that I mean people of the Jewish faith. So I'm not talking about Jewish people in general. I'm not talking about Israelis in general. I'm talking about people of the Jewish faith. They've made a worldview based on relativism or subjectivism. They're relativists or subjectivists. And so I'm going to go back to the story again because it's so incredibly important. It's called the Oven of Achnai. And I'm not going to tell the story again. I've told it before. I'll put a link in the description below if you want to see that. But you had one rabbi and he was correct objectively. You had a bunch of rabbis and they were incorrect objectively. This guy would say something. God would do a miracle to prove that he was right because he's objectively right. These people would twist the scripture intentionally and lie, then say they were right. This guy would do, and then God would do a miracle. This guy, and then they ended up kicking this rabbi out. Later on, God said to Elijah, my children have defeated me, my children have defeated me. And the point of that story is that no matter what those rabbis said, subjectively, they were correct, because all that exists to them is their subjective reality. There is no objective reality where that's twisting scriptures. Nope, it's what they said. So that is the scriptures. There's no objective reality to them where this guy is right because he's using the right scriptures. There's no objective reality to them where God's doing miracles in front of their eyes. Then they're excusing the miracles by. But if you can understand this, a lot of things now make sense. Like, look at, okay, I don't know which one I want to go to first. Let's go to trans, okay? So we did this whole LGB thing, right? And they did this thing when I was growing up, or like when I was in school in the 90s, in high school, and they said, you're either born gay or you're not, And that's not a thing. You're not born gay, Obviously, people become gay for a lot of variety of factors. And just an easy way to say this is when it becomes acceptable to be gay or trendy to become gay, the amount of gays increase, the percentage of youth who are LG or B or a million other things, but not trans. We're not talking about trans. Increases rapidly. Well, if you're born gay, then a certain percentage should be born gay, or if it's culturally influenced, then the number would go up, Now you could say it was because they were repressed before, so there were actually this like 20% of people were actually gay, but it only reported as 3%. I'm just making these numbers up because 17% were repressed. You could say that. It's nonsense because we see in our lives, regardless of whether they say that or not, I don't know if they are, but we see once it gets promoted, it grows incredibly rapidly, And growing incredibly rapidly means it's cultural and not you're born gay. Now they're kind of off of the born gay thing though. They just say there's a lot of different factors and this and that. But don't forget that they used to tell you that you were either born gay or you're not. Because the thing is, if somebody's born a certain way, it's hard to discriminate against them, If you're a guy and you're born and you're 5'2", I mean, you're short. Like if we're friends, I'll joke with you, you know what I mean? But really, you're just born that way. And you're kind of a dirtbag if you just give him trash all the time, for being short. It's just kind of mean at one point, because that's how he was born. Now you choose to, do something this and that with your hair or whatever, you can be made fun of because that's a choice you make. So they're trying to excuse being gay, like, hey, you can't discriminate against them because they were born that way, right? Then later on they say, nah, they weren't really born that way, right? Now they say, trans people, they're born that way. You just did this one to us within my lifetime. Like you didn't wait a whole generation until I boomered and died off, You're doing it again, the same generation. I see you. Now, you might be 20 watching this and be like, I don't remember nothing about that with the LGBT. Okay, cool. They're trying it on you for the first time. But we've already seen this before. They say, oh, you're just born in the wrong body. It's just God's just messing it up or whatever, and then they point to some obscure cases. And I just think that when you look at this logically, you're going to say like, look, objectively, we're not born in the wrong body. I'm sorry. It's not a thing. 0 people are born in the wrong body. There's hermaphrodites. Those are wildly small percentage of the population. In that case, you're not born in the wrong body. You're just born in a body with 2 parts, and that your parents make that decision and you don't get to make the decision. That's a very specific problem. And if that happened to you and you feel like you went the wrong way on it, I feel for you because that's a rough situation. But of all the people born XX and XY, you're not being born in the wrong bodies. This is the LGB. You're born this way. Lie. Like they used to say it back then. They were like born this way, and everybody who, all the gay guys were all just raised by their mother and their aunts and stuff like that, and there was no male influence in their life. Just happened to be. They were born that way. Whatever. So when you look at it and you're like, okay, these people obviously aren't born gay. They're not born trans. There are gay people. There are trans people, but you look at the lie and you're like, objectively, that's not true. But they don't care that it's not true. They don't care. They'll push it. And if we'll go back to Charlie Kirk. I know it's a fresh issue, but Charlie Kirk can say the same logical that's objectively true that I'm saying and have somebody looking him right in the eye and subjectively saying, no, that's false. I was born trans, and it's like, oh, clip that. And so, because you're living in 2 different realities. That guy is a subjectivist and you as a dualist are sitting here. Let's look at another one, the body positivity movement. Okay. So I'm not talking about like thick girls. I'm talking about obese girls. I'm talking about like Lizzo, like morbidly obese. I'm talking about 500-pound sisters. I don't really know what they look like, but it sounds like something I'm talking about. And, but like men have different, they like different things. Some would maybe like the super skinny supermodel. Some would say she needs to eat a hamburger. Some would like regular. Some would like thick. Some would like, like there's all types. But nobody wants morbidly obese. Nobody wants a 500-pound girl. Like that's not a thing. Okay, you can point to a couple people. You can point to a couple people who want to do fetishist stuff. Okay, whatever. I'm talking about in general. Nobody wants that. And then they try to they try to come with this body positivity and say, no, that's good. That's good. You should be attracted to that. You should. Doesn't make sense. It's not attractive. It's not healthy. Health problems, for goodness sakes, the things you're doing to that woman by saying that, hey, her doctor's saying, yeah, you should probably lose some weight and get healthy. You're not supporting my body. Like, it's insanity. It's objectively, you look at reality, and I'm not saying like, okay, if this girl's just a thick girl and she's 40 pounds, and you like it, then that's fine. I'm talking about the extreme example and them trying to promote it with the body positivity. Doesn't make any sense. Unless you're saying it's a fetish, in which case it's a obscure minority, which is whatever. That's up to you. But what I'm saying is they try to replace this as normal, and just nobody went for it. I don't know of a sane, rational human being who was like, yeah, they got a point. Lizzo. Perfect. Lizzo, And of course, she's lost a lot of weight, and good for her now. I'm talking about her when she was very, very large, back in that time. So in this way, there's an objective reality that's true, and they're just doing this subjective thing, and you can spot it because it's completely irrational. It just doesn't make any sense, which is why, bear this in mind, this is the thing that people always say. The left can't argue about their positions, and the reason why they can't argue about their positions is because they're not objectively true. They're just subjectivist positions, right? And you can, I don't really want to go do this with Israel. You can, because it's rabbi stuff, but you could just go down the rabbit hole yourself. And when we're talking about, well, you shouldn't be killing women and children, and they're just justifying it whichever way in their subjective reality they want to, given any variety of situations. Before it was like, yeah, we'll kill civilians, but not hospitals. Now it's like, we'll do the hospitals too. Now it's like, we'll target the doctors. Now it's like, we'll target the press. And you're looking at it, you're like, this is horrendous, but you're looking at it from the subjective reality. It's all really common sense. I don't think I need to explain it. Another one though that I wanted to point out, because it's related to some content on the channel here, is that, okay, so originally, am I going to get banned on YouTube? Okay, YouTube, this is for educational purposes only, just stating a few facts. They're not really that inconvenient. They're not uncontested. Educational purpose only, YouTube. Okay, so the Holocaust, right? So originally, when it happened, it was 6 million people, and it was 4 million gassed at Auschwitz and 2 million gassed at Majdanek, right? And then you take the numbers now, and the numbers are now like 78,000 at Majdanek and 1 million at Auschwitz, which brings you to like, what was it, 1.1 million, at whatever. So it's like 1.1 to 1.2 million is the number in those two places, yet the number still remains at 6 million, And so if you're a dualist like myself, and you're like, okay, well, there's an objective reality. Tons of Jews died in a literal Holocaust, because at the end, civilians shouldn't be dying. And if you take them into your custody, despite who bombs the trains, it's still a Holocaust. It's a genocide. It's a lot of people died. Even if it's not the complete wiping out, it can be in whole or in part. But you can't take that number that's 1.1, 1.2 and expand it to 6 million, keep it at 6 million, because as they kept it at 6 million, the numbers didn't go down quickly from Majdanek. They went down like this over the years. In the 70s, they were still going down, and the number kept staying at 6 million. When you look at it with objective reality, there has to be real facts of real things that happened, real names, real people that mattered, real people dead, real families wiped out, generations wiped out. A terrible thing to happen to any people. But I look at it objectively, like there's this real reality, and they don't, though. They don't. They say it's 6 million. And okay, so the number's going down by 250,000 today. Let's raise this number 40,000, 10,000 here. But that's not objective. That's not really happening. You're just fumbling numbers. Oh, tomorrow it's another 200,000. Okay. So you see the problem here is that we're looking at things as a dualist, and we're looking at things objectively. There's a world outside myself that actually exists. There's real facts in there. Right? And this is why, like I was saying, the liberal and the conservative can't argue, because the conservative is the dualist, and the liberal a lot of times is the relativist or subjectivist, and they're just trying to, whatever floats for them works. And then the conservatives looking up, like Charlie Kirk did, looking up statistics, reporting facts. And the problem with this too, if I go back to Charlie Kirk for a second, when you look up statistics and facts, sometimes statistics and facts are inherently racist. They're not. They're just facts, but the conclusion drawn from them is racist. And so, like, after his death, a lot of people are saying, like, oh, he said this statistic. Now I say, okay, is that statistic factually true? And they say, but it's racist. Do you see how I'm looking at it objectively? Because if that statistic is not true, And then if it's not true and you're targeting a group, then it is racist in a bad way that I would condemn. Then Charlie Kirk's a bad guy. But they look at it as, is it racist? And it's true, but it's racist conclusion. So what, you're not allowed to say stats that are inconvenient? Like if it was just like Asian and driving records, something, like not wildly insane to say, but you're not allowed to talk about that. And I don't want to talk about that because it's irrelevant to any of my content. I'm just saying, if you want to talk about it, you should be allowed to talk about it. Comedians talk about it all the time. It's absolutely hilarious, Anyways, that's what I got for you. This is very general, this concept, but I think it applies to a lot of stuff. If you could think of things that it applies to that I didn't bring up, that I should have brought up, I'd be interested in hearing in the comments, because this is a continuing, ongoing thinking here. I think it's really sound. Oh, Victor's take was, okay. So a rabbi, will say, would argue that I'm incorrect in this video. And he would argue that I'm incorrect because he would say that the rabbi's subjective view is actually objective reality, right? And which is why he's so confident that he's right in everything he says, even though everything he says is wrong. But he's so confident because he believes he's perceiving objective reality, but he's not. It's just his subjective view, and he's calling it objective, right? Whereas I realize that, because that's still not dualism. Just claiming your subjectivity is objectivity is still a relativist, I'm claiming there's something outside myself, then I'm perceiving it and making conclusions about it. Then I get with another person next to me who has their own subjective view, and I say, hey, here's what I think about that thing over there. I think that's not right. And the guy says, I don't think anybody thinks that's right. That's terrible. Okay, so now we're making conclusions about, and we're not voting on stuff. We're actually looking in your heart what's right or wrong. When you do some bad things, you feel bad in your heart because you know you did something wrong. Anyways, that was Victor's take. I want to add that to it. Let me add a conclusion on here. And I want to say this. If you think about this, and maybe you haven't heard about this stuff because I've just been stewing on this stuff for months. If you really let this seep in and you really think about this hard, explain to me how it's possible to coexist in any relationship, not to coexist like exterminate, coexist in any type of relationship between dualists and relativists or subjectivists. Because you can't draw common conclusions in your own country, right? We can't come to an accord, an agreement on different stuff because we're living in different realities, like literally living in different realities. But in the same way, how can I deal with you as a country? If I'm a dualist, because I'm a dualist, and I'm dealing with a relativist country, how can I even deal with you? Because I might say, oh, let's go do a deal with Israel, this relativist country. And then they might say, hey, this deal's not going well for us, so it'd be perfectly moral to do a false flag on your own homeland and 3,000 of your Americans die. And you're like, well, that's not cool. That's terrible. Those are civilians. And they're like, no, objectively, it's totally okay. We can't work with you psychos. Do you know what I'm saying? Just because there's that conflict. And so in this conclusion, I'm not targeting anybody directly, even though I said Israel and blah, 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 because you could use this against the left. You could use this against trans people. You could use this against anybody you want. I want more people to be dualists. I want the maximal number of people to be dualists so that we can still disagree about stuff. There's a lot of gray areas that dualists can disagree. I'm not saying because I'm a dualist, I'm right about everything. My perception, my subjective perception of objective reality can still be incorrect when I draw the wrong conclusion. And I have frequently in videos, and I've been corrected in the comments. Yeah, you're right. I'm wrong. That's a thing. I'll admit it in the video. But at least we have a common basis for which we can build that accord. Whereas there's no possibility with an accord with these relativists unless they convert to become dualists. Anyways, that's what I got for you. Interested in hearing what you guys have to say in the comments below. Have a great weekend. See you next week.